Hello and welcome to my new tutorial. Today you can see how we install Docker native on a Mac, and we will set up a development environment locally with MySQL database and WordPress running inside Docker. So I will share the best practices how to do that, and this video is special for me, absolutely special, because this is the first time that I'm using my new MacBook Pro. It's a space gray 13-inch model, and the good news is that it's still empty. So I just created a development directory, but there's nothing in there. I haven't installed anything yet, and I decided to use Docker containers to run my development locally. So it's gonna be a nice experiment, and I hope you will find this useful. So in order to get started, we need to go to the Docker website, which is docker.com. Obviously, and first you need to download the installation package, and I have already done that. And the way you can access that you go to the website and then click getting started with Docker. So that you click this link, and behind that link you will find Docker for Mac. So if you click this, then you will get this DMG here. And as I explained before in my getting started with Docker tutorial, the Docker was not available as a native package for Mac and Windows up until very recently. I think it was released a few months ago, and now we have native support, so we don't need to do the previous technologies, mainly boot to Docker and the Docker toolbox. So if you see tutorials that tell you to use those technologies, then probably there is something better, most recent, and more applicable to you. In certain cases, you will not be able to use those. For example, if you have an older Mac, then you will need to use some older technologies. But for new Macs and Macs after 2010, this is what I mean by new. So most Macs, you can use the native package that we have downloaded here. So I hope you have already downloaded it. I have it here locally. So let's start it and see what happens. So all I'm doing here is that I'm dragging Docker to my applications. So this is done. First step is complete, and then let's go to applications here, find Docker and start it. And let's see what happens. Okay, I will open this. Welcome to Docker. Okay, so now you have to go through this little sort of wizard, and you give your computer password, and then you have this icon in the top bar, and this thing will stay here, and you can manage the Docker engine visually from here. Plus now you have the command line tools also installed, so if we go to the terminal, then we will be able to use the Docker command line interface. So send diagnostics data. Okay, let's do that. Let's be supportive, let's be nice. So this is the usual screen that you see, the usual menu. Docker is running. You can restart the engine from here, and you can check for updates and do some other stuff. For now, the most important part, I think, is done. So if I say Docker version, then Docker is installed, and let's check also Docker Compose version, and Docker Compose is also installed. So these are the two essential tools to run Docker locally, and the command line tools are installed. So where do we move from here? The next step that I would like to do is to install MySQL on this machine and use a Docker container as my local development database. And in order to do that, I need to pull the image of MySQL to my computer. And what I also did was that I downloaded SQL Pro, which is a MySQL client. You can see it here, and I will open that. So we will use SQL Pro to look into the local database. Okay, so this is going to be our client. It's completely free, by the way. You can download it here on sqlpro.com, and I like it because the client itself is native to Mac, and you can copy and paste like a 2 megabytes of SQL code in there, and it will run it just like a breeze. And I do that sometimes, so that's why that's why I think it's a good idea. It's very useful for me. Okay, so the next thing is we gotta pull the MySQL image. So what we should do, let's go to hub.docker.com, and you see there's a MySQL official image, and you know MySQL is an open source SQL database. MySQL itself was acquired by Oracle, and it has two sort of flavors or distributions. One of them is MySQL official, provided by Oracle, and there is another one called MariaDB, which is the community edition, and I prefer to use MariaDB. And if you have not used Docker before, or the Docker Hub here, then please watch my previous video, and I will provide a link here so that you can watch the getting started. First, there's a step-by-step guide, and then you will know, what all this is about. But the thing is that there were some changes here. So if you use the hub before, you know that you used to find, or we used to find all the images here, but now we have something called the Docker store, and it seems that third-party images are here. So e.g. MySQL, yeah, I'm looking for something like that, exactly. So MariaDB is here, and what we're gonna do, so we're gonna pull that image from the Docker Hub, or now the Docker store, and as I explained before, we will have to look at the exact versions. We should always prefer to use an exact version. So there's the latest. I don't know which one of these is the stable. Yeah, probably this one. Yeah, it would be nice to have some information about this here, but I just don't really mind. So let's pull. Shall we pull the latest, or shall we pull the standard one? 10.0.25. Let's do that. 10.0.25. Let's assume that this is the stable one, and we can even have a look at the Docker file to find out. Okay, this is DB and Jesse. Let's see the other one. Yeah, that's also Jesse based. Okay. So what else I could do? But this is part of the tutorial, so now that you see that I'm moving around on GitHub and on the Docker Hub, and this is how you usually explore a Docker image. So this is useful, so please pay attention. This shouldn't be a waste of time. What we are looking for is the right version, because we always prefer to use an exact version of a Docker image. So there is no information about this here, and I really would like to move on. So let's just pull this MariaDB image locally. And as I hit enter, this is what's going to happen. It's just going to pull the MariaDB image. Yeah, hopefully it's supposed to be doing that, and it's doing it. Okay, so let's wait until it comes down to my local machine. So all it's doing is just to copy this image from the cloud to my local machine. So I'm not yet running it. I'm not doing anything with it. I'm just copying, just pulling the files to the local machine. And then we will see after that in my images list I will have a MariaDB image listed here. And while we are waiting, let's talk about the parameters here. So we are pulling this image, and in order to configure this runtime, we need to think of a couple of things. And first and most important thing is that we will use MariaDB in a way that we will store data from the database itself outside the container. So that means that the container is a runtime and it has a configuration. It will run MariaDB for us, but if we store the data inside the container, then we will probably lose that data when we start a container, or we need to start a container with different runtime parameters. Then we need to destroy that container and start another one, and then all the data that's inside will be lost. And this is a generic issue or character of Docker containers. So if you want to store user-generated data inside a container, don't do it inside the container itself, map a local volume, an external volume, and store your data there. So in this way, you can shut down your container, you can remove your container, start a new container with a new version of the image, for example, or with some different runtime parameters, like a different port, for example, and then start it on top of the same database file set, and then you will have the same data inside. Okay, so this way I could actually, right now, I haven't thought of this before, but maybe I will try that later. I could actually copy the database files from my previous computer to this one and start my MariaDB on top of those. So let's start with an empty stuff first, and I will check if I can do that and show it to you, because that's the best use case, right? That would make a lot of sense. So if I say Docker images, I have one image. So yeah, my little MacBook Pro lost virginity at this moment. I have the first image deployed here. And so let's do something. Let's create the place for the database files. And the good news is that this is a common problem, or it is not really a problem. This is a common use case, and you will find a lot of information on the store, on the image documentation itself. So other people do the same thing. So there's a lot of stuff available about this thing. So what I usually do, and I will do it again, I will create an env directory under my development directory, because I think, I will usually list my projects under development, and env is just a generic part when I put my environments, like the MariaDB part I will put there, the MongoDB part I will put there, and so just let's say MariaDB. Okay, and then let's make another one for data. And yeah, I made a dedicated data directory because I will probably put some other stuff on the MariaDB, for example a Docker Compose file, so that I can start MariaDB with Docker Compose. But anyway, the point is that I have this directory right now. So what I want to do, I want to Docker run, and -d means that it's going to be running as a daemon, and -v, this is the interesting part here, that I will mount this volume, so this data folder, I will mount the data folder, and then I will need to find the mount point. Yeah, this is the custom config file. So usually you have everything documented here, so we can give it a name. Of course we will do that. You need to set the password, and you will see I will set my passwords. I will probably just set the root password to root, and how to link to it. This is very important when you want to link to it, for example from WordPress, and I will show that to you later. And yeah, connecting from the command line client, okay, container shell, etc, blah blah blah, okay. Environment variables, where is my data? Oh gosh, where is the data location of the data store? Environment variables, okay. Where to store data? I know these guys will be so nice to provide the right documentation here. Okay, so this is the location of the data files inside the container. So if I map my local directory into the container, then those things will be identical. And you will see when we start up this container, then the container will create the files on the local machine under this directory. Okay, and we're gonna, usually when we use configuration files or source code, we usually mount those things as read-only, but this time it's not going to be read-only because we're going to change that from within the container. Okay, so we add another environment variable. Maybe I will just I can copy and paste from here, and the root password, let's put root here, and we need to map the port, and the default port is the default port of MySQL, which is 3306, and I'm just looking for this information here, and let's go easier, right? 3306, this is exposed, so that's fine. It exposes the default port. So I'm gonna expose the default port to my host machine, so my local Mac. That means that that port will be mapped to my host machine, and I will be able to access it from that SQL client that we just installed. Okay, so we have a root password. This is something we need to give. We have the data file location. We have the port mapping, and yeah, we need to give it a name. Let's give it the name MariaDB, and then what we're gonna do is the name of the image plus the tag, which is the version number, so that Docker knows which is which image to run specifically. And I think I have everything set up. Yeah, I think we are good to go. Shall we go for it? Let's see. Wow. Docker PS. Yes, it seems that it's up and running. And you see the data directory that we just created is no longer empty. We have data files in this data directory. So let's go to the client and let's say localhost. This is my local host. And I believe that it will probably rewrite that to localhost. I don't know, we will see. Okay, and then let's test the connection. Connection succeeded. Connect, and we are connected. We are connected to the local database. So I think this is awesome, right? So we just put an image, we started up a container, we made sure that our data is in the right place, and here we go. Everything is set up. It works and behaves exactly as it was a local installation of MySQL. We're gonna add WordPress to the setup, and the way I usually do it, because I'm already using WordPress for development on my machine and I use Docker to run my WordPress instances. So what I usually do is I set up WordPress and the database in two separate containers. And you have the option to set up, there's one dedicated, there are a couple of images that combine the database and WordPress, so you can have both of them in one container. Which means that your entire system is in one container, which looks nice and clean and bundled in one box. And in the other option that I use, I have one database and I'm running multiple WordPress instances and connecting to the same container, and I have multiple WordPress databases in the same container instance. And this way, I prefer this way because I have production WordPress development as well, so production systems, and I have some hobby systems or hobby development. And none of these is really high performance, high load database, so I just prefer to have it in one database and then connect with various clients to the same thing. So in this setup, MariaDB is an official package, official image from the Docker Hub, and also WordPress will be the official image. So today, right now, if you just scroll down on the Docker Hub, the last item is WordPress. If you cannot find it in the future, maybe there will be different items here, then you can use the search functionality to find the WordPress image. So if we click on it, we will have a couple of options here. And the version is usually mapped, or always mapped to the WordPress version, so it's easy to identify. You can specify the PHP version as well. And that's important because if you have some custom plugins or some third-party plugins that don't support all the PHP versions out there, then you have the opportunity or the possibility to pick the right version so that you can run your well-known environment. So what we're gonna do, we're just gonna pull one of these images and we are going to install WordPress and create an empty website. And I've already picked the image, and the one I'm going to download is this one. So this version with an Apache server included, and please pull that. I have already pulled it. So with this command, so docker pull, then say WordPress, and then the easiest way is to copy and paste this version number or the version number that you want from the Docker Hub into your terminal. And I already pulled it because this is the second time I'm recording this video because the pull took a lot of time, so I decided to recreate everything. So if you go Docker images, then you will see that I already have a WordPress image pulled into my local repository because yeah, it's like 400 megabytes. Okay, so all we need to do is to start it. And before we start it, I usually read the documentation of Docker Hub because that usually tells us how to start it. Actually, yeah, most images tell us what to do. The only exception that I met so far is the Jekyll official image. That documentation is so hard to understand that I still need to work on it to make it work. But WordPress is very straightforward. So there's a new concept that you haven't seen in my tutorials yet. It is the linking concept. And the concept of linking is a Docker feature where you can specify a link between two containers. So in our case, we are going to link the MariaDB container, which is running here. If you check with Docker PS, I call this container MariaDB, and so some MySQL in our case is called MariaDB. That's the name of the container. And the second part here that you have to provide is the name of the variable that the MySQL container will be mapped to. And in case of WordPress, the official WordPress image, it is MySQL. So if you specify a container name and map it to the label MySQL or the variable MySQL, then that is enough for the WordPress container to be able to connect to your database. So this is how you connect to running containers. It's really elegant. I think that's a good word. Okay, so Docker run -d, that means we run in the background. There's a daemon. We give it a name, which will be WordPress, let's say tut for tutorial, and then we do the link. So link MariaDB to MySQL. And the other component we need to think of is the database password. Because, okay, let's go through this. There are a couple of environment variables that are listed here, and this part is important. If you are an advanced user, you can specify these things. But let's see what is the minimum that we need to specify. We don't need to specify a host or a user because the default is root, and our MariaDB is currently set up to use the root user. Of course, you should be setting up a dedicated user and then use that name, but right now this is okay. And even in the password, it says in my current setup I provide a password, but right now I'm not going to do that, and I will try something new, because it says that if we are linking this container to a MySQL container, then WordPress will use the default password and the root password that is inside. So let's do that. Let's try if this works. So having said all this, I think there's nothing that we need to specify here. What we need to specify on the other hand is how to map the port, because we need to map the port in the container to our host machine so that finally we can access the website in our browser on the host machine in the end. So what we're gonna do here, yeah, we need to map port 80 of the container to some port on the local machine. So -p, let's say 8080 for this little development server, and port 80. I think this is gonna be enough. So we say WordPress, and okay, sorry. What I'm looking for is the version information. Okay, this is the tag. So I copy and paste the tag here. All right, so we are running it as a daemon. We have the name right. We have the name right. Port mapping is there. Let's see. Okay. So it's running. All we have to do now is to see what's going on. So I'm using the port that we provided in the port mapping, and wow. So let's go for it. We are now setting up a WordPress site. Let's check something. I don't know when WordPress is actually creating the tables and the database, but there's a refresh button here. Let's see and refresh. Okay, it's not yet there. Okay, so let's go for it. So let's say this is a tutorial. username, admin, password. Okay, let's say password, because I want to be able to use that later on. Okay, confirm, and let's provide my name here. This is local. Okay, this is what I usually do. So add admin and password. So now we log in, admin and passwords, login. We are not going to update this password. So this is the first time we are logging in into our WordPress development setup. And yeah, let's come back here and see the databases. Refresh databases. No, that's okay. So this is the WordPress database that we just created. This was created by the installation process, and these are the options, these are the posts. So it created a WordPress database inside our MariaDB container. Okay, actually logically, because physically the files are not in the container, as I have already said. And as you see here, now we are in our website. So there's a WordPress site that we have. And if I visit that site on the new tab, wow, so there we go. And it was not very fast, but now it's fast, you see. So after this, I was really a bit worried, because when we logged on, it was pretty slow, but right now it seems to be pretty fast. So let's update these posts, updated the title, let's refresh this. Voila, there we go. So we have set up a WordPress development environment with Docker containers, and that's it. So I wish you good luck.